And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Michele Molitor. She's the CEO and founder of Nectar Consulting. She's the co-author of the best-selling book, Breakthrough Healing, and she works with executives and entrepreneurs, bringing more than 25 years of experience, intuitive insights, and strategic business savvy to their success. She's also a keynoter, an executive coach, and a rapid transformation therapist. So, welcome aboard today, Michele. How are you?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. So, if someone's out there today and they said in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, whatever, I want to be a speaker, author, executive coach, and rapid transformational therapist, what would you tell them to do?
Well, let's see.
Go back to dental school? I don't know.
Exactly. Stumble along in the dark, hit a wall
Yeah.
a few times, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's really, my work has evolved after hitting that proverbial brick wall in my former career as a creative director in web development and really realizing that really wasn't tapping into my true passions and purpose. And I stumbled upon
Okay, so
coaching.
step one is have a career and be miserable and hit a wall,
Yes,
right?
step
Okay,
one.
so how long do you have
Have
to do that for?
for as long as it takes until
Okay,
you
to hit so
realize
okay.
that, gosh, something about this isn't really working for me. Okay, what do I need to do differently?
I'm sort of joking, but what I mean underneath that is often we hear something similar to that. Like I was really good at what I did, but I'm miserable. I hated it, health issues, whatever. And then I'll ask people like, well, how long were you feeling that way? And more often than not, it's for a really long time. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's always nice to say when you're feeling it, like lean into that a little bit. So yeah.
yeah. No, as an interesting side note, this was a few years ago now. I was up in Berkeley sitting on a Friday afternoon doing some writing at a local spot at the campus. And I overheard these two gentlemen talking to me. And this one man was literally, it was his last day after being at the university for like 30 years. And he was like,
Wow.
yes, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm moving to Arizona and I'm going to start my life. And I thought, wow,
Wow.
that is so sad. So sad that he spent his whole career doing something that, yeah, I do it. I'm good at it, but I don't really like it. I'm not really living. Now I'm going to live. And, we've heard so many stories of people in similar fashion who are like, oh yeah, now I'm going to start my life. And then boom, they die of a heart attack or get hit by a bus or, something horrible happens to them. And I was like, no, that is not the way to go. So, my motto is do what you love and love what you do. Right.
Got it. So once you realized that there was something else out there for you, or your current career wasn't giving it to you, how did what were the steps or the processes you took that said, I can do this, 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 or this? Because you didn't have to land where you did as a coach and a consultant and a speaker, but what sort of brought you to that?
Well, truly, it was my own quest to figure myself out. Like,
Okay.
okay, that didn't work. What do I do now? And I stepped into coaching to help me figure out what to do next because I
Okay.
was truly a deer in the headlights at that point, given the circumstances. And what I found was this modality, this career path that I didn't even know existed. I truly didn't even know what it was. And once I started being coached by someone, my whole body lit up like, oh, this is the thing that I'm here to do. Like every cell in my body knew. And so I struck out on the path and I started getting trained and certified and have become a learning junkie in the process and have constantly been sharpening my saw over the last 18 years.
Got it. So unlike other careers, right, you have the certification and the training where most folks struggle early on is not around the passion or the capabilities development or any of that, but it's the business side of the house, right? So how do you then go about, because it's two totally different skill sets, being, a
Yes.
really, really good coach and being someone that's fluent enough to survive in marketing and sales. So talk about that sort of tightrope for a little bit.
Sure, and that was quite a learning. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, right?
Okay.
So literally the thought of handing my resume to someone was far more daunting than I'll just start my own business. Truly. I'm like, I'll just figure it out, right? And you're absolutely right. Doing what you love and running a business are two very different skill sets. And so I picked up a lot from my family, having grown up with multiple family businesses, but there was a lot of stumbling around in the dark. I won't lie, but I put myself through various intensive learning episodes to learn more about sales, to learn more about marketing, to learn more about running a business. And I won't kid anybody. It took me a couple years to kind of figure it out.
So let's talk about that for a little bit, because if you think about the decisions that you have to make, and every decision along the way could be right, wrong, or somewhere in the middle, right? So there's pricing and packaging, right? How do I even put my work out there? There's defining your target market. There's differentiating enough in that target market so someone goes, would say, why you, right? And then there's figuring out the ways through marketing, relationship, sales, etc., to find the people that you can serve the best. So give us a little sense of the condensed version of it took you a few years to figure it out. Like what worked well? Where did you stumble? What mistakes might you have made?
Sure. Well, I literally had to unravel each of those things, and they are each distinct different sets of skills. And so first I did some intensive work on how do you sell, what does that look like, what do those conversations look like, how do you identify your target market so that you know who you're looking to speak to. I, as a graphic designer in my former life and creative director, I had, a lot of branding,
Yep.
marketing expertise already under my belt. So that kind of came more naturally to me,
Sure.
but was still continually learning from different experts in the field.
Well, let me ask you about the target market piece, because one of the areas, and I don't know if you got tripped up on this, where coaches and consultants and advisors early on, there's a disconnect between, wow, I could really help this type of person, someone in a career transition or whatever it is. However, that market can't really support me. And there's a bit of a tension there. Like, wow, I know I could really kill it for these people, but they don't really have the money to support me. Did you have to experiment with that?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. And what I found is that, and it's a really interesting correlation that I've noticed, is that particularly for new coaches who are developing their skills and developing their confidence, because of that lack of confidence, they they won't admit this, but they're not sure of themselves, they're not believing in themselves, and they're not sure of their own value. So they're not pricing themselves high enough, and they're attracting to them or seeking out the folks who are in a similar mindset. It's a lot of this happens unconsciously. And so the biggest thing that anybody can do who's starting a business is do what you need to do to build your confidence and know your value, know your worth of the services that you're offering, because then you can target a higher bracket of clientele. Because if you don't believe that you're worth $1,000 a month or $5,000 a month or whatever the number may be, right? You can't convince anybody else of that, right?
When people have a struggle sometimes realizing, like, wait a minute, I'm worth that much, and it's like, yeah, actually you are. And I don't know
Yeah.
about your experience, but a lot of my clients, they find that it's actually far easier to provide services at a higher price point than it was struggling along at some fraction of what they're currently charging.
Amen, brother.
Right. Well, because you're dealing maybe with a buyer that's not that sophisticated, or the investment's really, really significant for them, or there's hundreds of reasons, but it's sort of counterintuitive to just sort of basic economics that it should be easier to sell something that costs more. But in the case of services, I think in many instances, I know for keynote speakers, coaches, advisors, it's absolutely the case.
Yeah, absolutely. They teach you at a coaching school. Well, you start off at $100 an hour, $150 an hour, and people get stuck in that range, and it has an impact on their psyche, on their what they perceive their value to be. But you're absolutely right. How many clients at $150 an hour does it take versus one client at $1,000 an hour, right? Or
Right.
a package at
And it's not so simple to say, well, at $100 an hour, 40 hours a week, it's never that, right? Because there's the customer
right. It's
acquisition
never
time, the
ever
prep
that.
time. It's yeah. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. Okay, so other things that you've learned along the way, we talked about some pricing. What about the packaging, productization, and target markets? Because this is where most people trip up early on.
Well, what I've discovered is clarity is key. Get really, really clear on who is your ideal target market, Peter. Not the, I can serve everyone who has a brain. No,
No.
that's not who you want to work with, right? You want to find the people that you most resonate with. And I've learned over the years that your greatest source of power is your greatest source of pain. So the thing that you have come through, right? The greatest challenge that you've come through tends to be your sweet spot because you understand it so deeply that you can see that and resonate with that in other people. So let me give you a great example. My dear friend Sherry Ann Tom, she is a 5-time cancer survivor. God bless her. She's amazing. And she's a coach, and what she's done has created a company called The Cancer Journey. And she now trains people on how to become cancer coaches
Wow.
to assist people who are going through their cancer journey. So she's really, really clear on who her target market is. I work with people who are either going through cancer or caregivers to cancer or who just come out of cancer, right?
Got it.
So when you are really clear on what that very specific niche is, and I hear this all the time, right? Well, if I can't narrow my niche that much because then no one will find me. No, actually, that's what you want. You want people to exclude themselves so that you can target just the right people for you.
Well, and in your friend's example, in terms of the niche, that's a really, really narrow niche. That's great. So what that gives her is a smaller target market to go after, but you've got limited marketing resources, so you know where going to place your bets. And once you find people that could use your help, I would argue that her level of connection, resonance, relevance with a potential client is exponentially higher than someone that wasn't a cancer survivor trying to coach someone that has cancer, right? So it's
Yes,
finding your tribe, finding your peeps. It doesn't have to be that closely correlated that you're had the exact same experience, but I like that
sure.
example. What else would you share with us? We're talking about some of the other things where you've maybe skinned your knee along the way. Any other things that you struggled with?
Well, once you've identified that target market, then it's identifying, okay, well, where does your target market live? Where
Yep.
do you find them? Where do you
Yep.
connect with them? And, in the world of social media these days, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach that, whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, but first off, I want to. I mean, you fast forwarded through a key point is the onus and the burden is on you to do that. Just because you're the greatest coach in the world or the greatest consultant in the world, and you hang up your shingle and you see people get gunked up and spending months and months of putting up a website and sort of waiting and waiting and waiting, you have to be
Yeah.
very aggressive and active on the outreach side because putting up a website is like having an unlisted phone number.
What is it? Spitting into the wind?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So talk about your use of social to find your target markets then.
Well, you have to understand your strengths. You have to understand that key point of differentiation for yourself. And early on, a lot of folks don't know what that is. And so it's a lot of trial and error. Well, I did some of this and I did some of that. Well, this really worked. Oh, that failed miserably, right? And so part of it is noticing who are you attracting, right? Who are the clients that are coming to you? What are the themes that keep coming up
So you're,
and
you're
are
spotting
resonating.
patterns, right? And
Yeah, spotting patterns.
sometimes you come in with a preconceived notion of I could do X for Y, and that works. Other times it's just really, really listening to the market, and it will tell you what you need to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to pivot for a moment, if we could, to authorship. So at what point in your career did you decide I've got to write a book, and then underneath that, let's talk about the the zillions of decisions that you make underneath that. But when did you decide that you wanted to or should?
Well, I actually have co-authored 3 different books, and the first one was very early on in my career as a coach in I think 2002 or something, because I knew that it was a valuable marketing tool. I knew that being able to go up and give talks and say yes, and I'm a co-author of this book. It just lends credibility, and the whole idea, well, there's 2 ideas behind writing a book, is to confirm your expertise, right? I can talk about this and people can go, oh, she has a book.
Right.
And it creates that mindset of expertise, right? The second reason for writing a book is I have this amazing message that I absolutely have to get out of
Yep.
my body
Yep.
and share with others in the world.
Well, and those are two different. Those are two very, very different passions. So one is one of the reasons I've been put on this planet is to get this out and help people and free the ideas so that they can do what they need to do, and that's very honorable. And then the other is obviously the credentialization and the business side. It seems like you've been able to sort of blend those two together in a nice way, which is really hard to do. But talk about how you sort of merge the two, because it doesn't have to be just a do good or do well.
Yes. So, in my latest book, Breakthrough Healing, it afforded me the opportunity to really speak to my passion and my purpose as a rapid rewire expert, bringing the power of rapid transformational therapy and coaching together and sharing with people the the neuroscience behind that, what that looks like, and how it can really be of service to them. And so it was a really fun thing for me to do. It came pretty easily. And so again, it's about how do you step into your sweet spot, that place that you operate from most easily, effortlessly, naturally, like breathing. And when you can speak, talk, write from that place, it lands very authentically. And it's that authenticity that people are drawn to, right? Coming back to, our comments earlier about, your target audience. When people resonate with you, that's when they're going to go, oh, okay, I want to talk with you.
Yep. So that's more around the voice. As we start to wrap up, tell us a little bit about some of the more pragmatic or practical decisions you had to make when becoming an author or authoring your last book, in terms of how to publish and market and distribution and all that stuff.
Well, finding in either an agent or a publisher to work with, again, that resonates with your message and the type of work that you do. I worked with Jane Tabachnet of Simply Good Press out of New York, actually, and looking at what's the material of the overall book need to be. How are we going to go about getting it published and printed? What's the cover design going to be? Who's going to be in the forward? Who can, speak to the contents of the book as outside experts as well? So there's, lots of other nuances to it. And then there's the sitting down and the writing part.
Yeah, right. Well, two totally different things, right? So I was asking more about the first piece, which you mentioned, of the all these series of decisions that you make that have an impact, and it sounds like you found a good partner there to help you with that. But you've got to find the right fit, right? And then you've got to figure out what you're responsible for and what you're not.
Exactly, exactly. And then there's even the decisions on the other side of the book once it's published. Okay, now that you've got a hot new book in your hand, now what are you going to do with
Yeah,
it, right?
exactly.
How do you let
Yeah,
people know that it's available and how can they get it? And that comes back into the whole marketing conversation. It's
exactly.
just another piece that you can use to market yourself.
You've got it. So as we wrap here, any final thoughts or words of wisdom to share with our folks out there?
Well, I would say let find your truth, right? And allow your voice to come through in the different materials that you use to speak about your business, your services, because that authenticity really matters, and it makes a big difference in how you attract the clients that are important for you to work with.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much today. This has been wonderful, and I appreciate your time and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's been a great honor to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.